Welcome to Fan Fave with Katrina.
Fan Fave with Katrina.
It's time to talk pop culture.
It's a great day because you're listening to Fan Fave. Welcome back. I'm your host, Katrina, and I am in a very nostalgic mood right now, you guys. I saw a tweet the other day that said it was 14 years since the charity project Disney's Friends for Change released the song Send It On. It featured the Jonas Brothers, Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, and Selena Gomez. And you guys, I rewatched the video and it just made me so sad, to be honest. Like, that was just such a peak time. I mean, they literally had me wanting to recycle at 8 years old. Like, they literally made me care about the environment. And it's just such an iconic team up. But then also, I'm not sure if everyone is actively following, but on this Friday, August 25th, we have new music coming from 4 music artists who got their start on a Disney or Nickelodeon project. So I thought this is the perfect time to talk about all of these different music artists who may have got their start in acting, but now are crushing it in the music industry. But first, let's do a quick pop recap to discuss all the things in entertainment that I have just not been able to stop talking about since the last time I spoke to you all on this podcast. First off, in music, I want to talk Taylor Swift, as usual for me. But she recently announced her next re-recording at the final night of the first leg of her North American tour in Los Angeles. 1989, Taylor's version is coming, and I am so excited because I'm just such a 1989 girly. It's my favorite Taylor album, and I'll admit, I think it's a great idea what Taylor is doing with the re-recordings, but to me, in and of itself, they usually aren't something I'm super overly excited about because at the end of the day, it still is old music. Like, we've heard all the songs already, but Taylor always surprises us, so we get those extra unreleased tracks from the vault, and I think that's such a special part of it all. Taylor says she's got a grand total of 5 tracks from the vault for her upcoming 1989 release, and I just cannot wait. I need to hear those songs immediately. 1989 was Taylor's first fully pop album, and it was pop perfection, truly. I just know when I hear those unreleased tracks, I'll immediately feel catapulted back into the year of 2014, and it's going to be so incredible. Now, some fans are still speculating, or at least having some wishful thinking, that Taylor will release a remix to her song Style, featuring Harry Styles himself. I myself am not the most confident that that's going to happen, but you never know, so let me know on social media what you think about that theory. Now, as I talked about a bit on my last episode, Taylor announced some new dates for her Eras Tour, and I mentioned that I was trying for Miami tickets, and you guys, I have an update. I got tickets. If you haven't heard yet, the last episode of the Fan Fave podcast was all about the concert experience, and I, along with a lot of other fans, kind of spent a good chunk of it discussing the difficulty of getting tickets these days, and especially problems with Ticketmaster. We talked about the on sale of the Eras Tour last year and how rough that was for all of the fans, and I complained personally about how I've never gotten verified fan for anything. And now I'm thinking maybe they listened to the episode and heard me out or something, because this time they verified me. I was so shocked by this, truly, and it also ended up being such a smooth process to get tickets. They did a staggered on sale across 3 days this time, and I know for Miami it was all in the same day, but each night went on sale at a different time. And so I had night 3 for Miami, and my on sale was last at 3 p.m. So I was watching Twitter and TikTok all day just to see how the other on sales went, because Miami was also on the very first day, and after seeing the first on sale, I was yeah, I may have a chance at this. Ticketmaster actually changed their waiting room setup, so it used to say 2,000 plus people ahead of you, but that could have meant 2,001 people ahead of you, or it could have meant 20,000 people ahead of you. You really had no clue. So now it has actually started to say the actual number, and on Twitter for Miami Night 1, the highest queue number that I had seen anyone post was 16,000. And then I did the math with how many tickets everybody could buy, which was a maximum of 4, and how many seats were in the venue. And I was even the person that's 16,000th in line, and in that case scenario where everyone in front of them bought 4 tickets, there's still enough seats in the stadium for them. So I was okay, I definitely have a chance. Because then I saw that they actually did get tickets, and everyone was in and out in under 30 minutes. So I was really ready. So my on sale was at like 3 and I logged on at 2:30, 30 minutes before it opened. And I know there's a lot of talk also about whether you should refresh before the waiting room and the actual queue. And I kept going back and forth about whether or not I should refresh before joining, but ultimately I decided not to. And I got a queue number in the 6,000s, which was amazing. I think I got in to buy tickets within like 20 minutes and there were still so many tickets left in all of the sections. I got seats exactly where I wanted and like I was super nervous, but it ended up completely working out. Like I was so surprised. So now I'll be seeing Taylor in Miami for round 2 of the Eras tour. I've actually never been to Miami before, so I'm going to turn it into like a full vacation and sightsee down there before going to the show. It's just going to be so much fun. I'm also curious, since this will be technically a new leg of the tour, if she'll make any changes to the set list or just do things differently. I do know that she has to reset the surprise songs since she's basically sung all of them now, and then at that point she will have toured like Europe and all these other countries, so by the time she's back for the second round of the US tour, she's gonna have to have more 1989 tracks available for those surprise songs. So fingers crossed that I get like Clean or I Know Places or something like that for my surprise song at Miami Night 3. Now, let's talk theater. I saw Moulin Rouge again for the 9th time. Guys, I just love the show so much. This was my first time seeing the tour production, and since I've seen it on Broadway 8 times, I was constantly noticing all of the small changes they made between the two productions. To be honest, I was a little curious and maybe somewhat nervous of how good the tour production would be, since the immersion and interactive nature of the show is, in my opinion, one of the biggest selling points of the Broadway production. On the tour, you do lose a lot of that when there's no catwalk, no aerial effects, no can-can seats, and the set is smaller, and in some cities, you don't get the windmill or the elephant, which luckily in DC at the Kennedy Center, we did get 2 of those elements of the Rouge, at least. We did get the elephant and the windmill, so I was happy about that. But with the staging being so much more simplistic from what I had heard, I was worried that the show would have more of a fourth wall up for the audience members and just lose that interaction that they have on Broadway. But guys, I ended up being pleasantly surprised. Like, truly, while I was watching the show, I didn't find myself missing any of those real aspects of the Broadway production as much as I thought I would. The things that I noticed were just changes with some of the blocking for certain numbers and also just different entrances and exits. Obviously, not enough room for things like the can-can dancers running through the audience, stuff like that, but nothing that actually took away from the quality of the production and also nothing that somebody seeing it for the first time on the tour would notice or miss. In fact, the biggest differences that I took note of were actually all for the good, and I'm talking about a lot of the acting choices made by the tour cast. I thought they were phenomenal. John Cardoza was Christian and Yvette Gonzalez Nasser was Satine, and they both blew me away. I felt like John really just gets Christian as a character. Like, not only was he vocally incredible, but I have seen 4 actors now play the role of Christian, and I think that he did the best job at showing that shift between this happy-go-lucky, innocent, and hopelessly in love guy in Act 1 to his complete descent into madness by Act 2. Yvette also played a stunning and mature Satine. Her vocals were so smooth and really great, and also, I didn't know this until I was reading the playbill on the way home, but she used to be on the Nickelodeon show The Fresh Beat Band, and I thought that was a pretty fun fact. I do think it's really unfortunate that John Cardoza is leaving the cast of Moulin Rouge tour at the end of its DC run. He really may have been my favorite actor I've seen in the role of Christian, and obviously I would love to see him move on to the Broadway cast as Casey Cott will be leaving the show up in Broadway in December, but I also think he may be preparing to join the cast of The Notebook that's coming to Broadway next spring, as he was in the out-of-town tryout for that in Chicago last year. So we'll see what he's up to after he leaves in September. Another theater thing I've been talking about a lot lately is Hadestown, especially because Eva Noblezada has officially departed from the show. She's the original Eurydice and has been with the show since 2018. I got to see her in the show, and I even got to meet her back in February, and she's truly incredible. She's just one of those talents that you just absolutely have to see. I mean, her story is also so cool. For those that don't know, she was actually discovered when she was 17 years old in high school, and then ever since then, in like 2014, she's basically been on major stages performing ever since between the West End in London and Broadway in New York. So it's great to see her kind of have a break now. Replacing Eva in Hadestown is Saleha Pfeiffer, which I am also so excited about. I think this is just a fantastic casting. I saw Saleha when she made her Broadway debut, actually, in Almost Famous last October, and she's such a great vocalist. I'm so glad to see her back on Broadway again so soon, and I can't wait to rewatch Hadestown with her in it, hopefully sometime soon. But back to Eva, last week, tickets for her next show actually went on sale, and she will be starring alongside Jeremy Jordan in the Paper Mill Playhouse production of The Great Gatsby coming up in October. I really want to go and check it out because the cast is just so great, but it's also in New Jersey, and you guys, I'm sorry, I have never been to those parts before, so I'd have to plan out a little trip, so we'll see. I did just want to talk about it a bit though, in case any of my Broadway fans are a little confused, because there are actually two musicals based on The Great Gatsby that are currently doing out-of-town productions, and the conversation right now, at least among a lot of Broadway fans, is that they are both aiming for Broadway. So there's the Paper Mill Playhouse production starting in October, and then up in Boston at the American Repertory Theater, there's Gatsby starting in May. I'm really curious to see which one has the best reviews or the best shot at getting a spot on Broadway. Obviously, the Paper Mill Playhouse production in New Jersey has the leg up in terms of timing, but here's the thing. I think the cast is fantastic in the New Jersey production, but the Boston production, which hasn't announced its cast yet, has an incredible lineup for their production team. The music is being done by Florence Welch of the indie rock band Florence and the Machine, and then you have staging by Rachel Chavkin, who worked on Hadestown, and Natasha Pierre in The Great Comet of 1812, which had such unique and notable stage design. And then the choreography is by Sonia Taya, who worked on Moulin Rouge, and you know the choreo in Moulin Rouge is just so good, one of the best aspects of the show. So I feel like this Gatsby production in Boston has all of the aspects of an epic show, and so I'm just curious to see which one prevails, because I don't think they would have two musicals about the Great Gatsby on Broadway at the same time. But let me know which production you're most excited for. I want to hear from you. In the film and television world, today, Tuesday, August 22nd, the Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild are hosting a National Day of Solidarity rally in Los Angeles. The Screen Actors Guild has been on strike since July 14th, while the Writers Guild has been on strike since May 2nd. Now, the Writers Guild has been meeting with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers once again, and I hope that they are able to get a fair deal really soon. And while the actors have not yet started renegotiating with the networks, hopefully movement with the writers means they will soon also find a resolution. I fully support the writers and actors on strike and hope they can get this fair deal soon. If you are looking for ways to support the workers who make the exciting film and television content that we pop culture fanatics love, you can donate to support those out of work with the Entertainment Community Fund. This helps support Hollywood employees and crew who are suffering hardship due to the strike. Just head to entertainmentcommunity.org for more information. There's also a snacks and supplies fund that you can donate to for strikers going out on the picket line every day, and you can find more information on that at actionnetwork.org. It's called the Snack List. Now let's get into the topic of today. I just think it's a funny saying that basically Disney had everybody singing. Everyone was in the studio, whether you were a singer or not. They were just trying to push anyone to be a star and then basking in the success of whoever or whatever was a hit. And I get it. I grew up during this prime era of the network. And when I was a kid, I saw the Jonas Brothers in concert. I saw Miley Cyrus. The Cheetah Girls were actually my very first concert when I was 5. But then, I also saw everyone else. You guys, I went to a Mitchell Musso concert. I had his CD and everything. They also had this music group called The Circle of Stars, and it was basically the full entire cast from every show or movie that was airing on the network. And then they basically just did cover versions of songs from Disney movies. It's just that Disney Channel was seen as a massive launching pad for stardom, and really it worked. You had Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and Ryan Gosling getting their starts on a Disney show together at the same time when they were kids, and those are all huge, notable names still now. And then during this peak era that I'm going to be talking about a lot today, they had this star-making model where the leads of their hit shows and movies were also being built up as huge pop stars. Now, some started off in the music world and then got shows or movies that helped them blow up further, like the Jonas Brothers, while others got their starts acting on the network and blossomed into music stars, like Sabrina Carpenter. In today's episode, I'll be taking you all on a journey through the music careers of Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, and Demi Lovato because they're all about to release new music right now. And I also think they're three of the most notable X acts, but we'll also be discussing some other artists from the mid 2000s, early 2010s era, and we'll take a look at some of the more current stars who are coming out of the acting space to launch successful careers now. Before we get started with the deep dive into our pop trio for today, I just want to give more insight into the atmosphere that these artists launched into, and I'm going to lay down some key facts that we'll want to know as we do this pop analysis. One of the big things to note is that Disney had two record labels, both under their recording and publishing arm called Disney Music Group. The first label is Walt Disney Records, which primarily serves as a base to release music from all of their Disney projects. The other label, Hollywood Records, was initially formed to expand into various genres, but was often also used for their acts to release music while still being under the Disney label. One of the first big successes out of Hollywood Records came from Hilary Duff and her 2003 sophomore album Metamorphosis, which sold over 5 million copies. That album was noted to be a success by Disney, especially because it came out during a time where she was heavily featured on the network with both shows and movies that had already catapulted her into a teen idol. Once she stopped doing shows and movies with the network, she still continued to release music through Hollywood Records, but the projects were not as successful as they were when she was the face of Disney Channel. After this, though, I think Disney realized that they had struck gold, as they then started using this formula where they pushed their actors on their shows and movies to become successful musicians. More and more artists from Disney projects started releasing through the Hollywood Records label, like Vanessa Hudgens and Corbin Bleu, Raven-Symoné, and then they created the Cheetah Girls, a girl group that was a real music act that also had film projects. It was especially at its peak during the years of 2007 to 2010, with stars like the Jonas Brothers, who signed to Hollywood Records in 2007, and with who we'll be focusing on talking about today, Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, and Selena Gomez. So let's start by talking about Miley Cyrus. She is probably the biggest hit of the Disney music industry. Miley came to the network with singing and acting experience, both of which she did on her Disney show. What I find so interesting about the strategy of her music career is that she released music under two different personas, both Miley and Hannah. Her first concert tour was with the Cheetah Girls on their Party's Just Begun tour in 2006, and there she performed as Hannah Montana. It's kind of funny when you think about it though, because both of these acts are almost like fictional stars created for television media, but then they also made real music for kids to be a fan of. Miley was signed to Walt Disney Records and released music as Hannah Montana through them, but she also signed to Hollywood Records where she released music as herself, Miley. Her first album was completely credited under Hannah Montana and was released in 2006 with singles like The Best of Both Worlds and If We Were a Movie. It was very successful here in the US, selling over 3 million copies. The following year, the two-disc album Hannah Montana 2, Meet Miley Cyrus, was released. So this was like a half and half album where disc 1 was credited as Hannah Montana's sophomore album and disc 2 was credited as Miley Cyrus's debut album. I loved this set as a kid. Like, I had the physical CDs and I would listen to it on the way to school every morning. I mean, for the Miley debut side, the songs like Start All Over, Girls Night Out, See You Again, those are bangers. Like, those were the anthems that 7-year-old me needed, truly. Now, Miley's first tour, the Best of Both Worlds tour, started in 2007 and had 71 shows. The Jonas Brothers, who were new to the scene at the time, served as her opening act. And while I didn't attend this tour, I actually did see both Miley and the Jonas Brothers this same year when they performed at the White House for their Easter egg roll. And what I found interesting thinking about that, and while I was doing like this little deep dive, I just thought about how rapidly these stars and their careers grew. Like, the Jonas Brothers were already there just 2 months after signing with Hollywood Records. Miley was performing on the main stage at the White House, while the Jonas Brothers were over on a smaller side stage. But then the following year when I came back, the Jonas Brothers were performing on the headline stage when I saw them again in 2008, which I thought was pretty cool. Some additional things to highlight about this debut tour for Miley. One is that she went on stage both as herself and also as her persona as Hannah Montana. It was still very much tied back to her show. Also, this was an arena tour. A star from a children's television network sold out arenas. Like, just let that thought sink in. Because when you're a child, I guess you don't really notice it. You don't really think about the impact that's having on the industry. But to think about that, that's really crazy because I feel like that doesn't really happen with children acts nowadays. Like, Disney truly crafted a pop star. And I found this quote that I thought was pretty funny about the tour because it had sold out so fast and actually led to scalping issues. And Ticketmaster actually came out and said, end quote, "There hasn't been a demand of this level or intensity since the Beatles or Elvis." And I don't know about you guys, even growing up in that era, I can't even imagine that having been the case. But I mean, that's crazy that Ticketmaster really said that. I mean, Miley was truly a star. Now, Miley released her second studio album, Breakout, in 2008, which featured songs like Seven Things and Fly on the Wall. That album sold 2 million copies in the US. In 2009, she also did voice work for a movie alongside John Travolta, and the song she wrote for the film led to a nomination for Best Original Song at the Golden Globes. She also released her hit singles The Climb and Party in the USA in 2009. Those are two of her most iconic songs. Timeless pop hits, truly. These songs led to her becoming the youngest artist in history to have 4 #1 albums on the chart. Now, as Miley continued releasing music and touring, she also began to grow out of her tween phase, and her show began to come to an end. She began her shift into appealing to a more mature audience with her 2010 album, Can't Be Tamed, which, due to controversy around her live performances and the lyrics in the album at the time, this led to the album not doing as well as her previous projects. After the release of this album, Miley parted from Hollywood Records, and this kind of marked the end of her Disney era. In 2013, she signed with RCA Records and began working with producers like Pharrell, and Mike Will made it towards a more hip-hop style record, which turned out to be Bangers. Now, I know a lot of moments and tracks from this era for Miley broke the internet countless times. I think Miley, more so than the other acts we'll be talking about today, really wanted to separate herself from her Disney history completely, and the transition was just so jarring and shocking for everyone. I mean, we all remember her twerking on stage at the VMAs, for example, and when you think about it, it's actually kind of understandable. I mean, I cannot imagine knowing that so many children around the world are looking up to me as an idol, as a role model. That's a lot of pressure for a teen or someone in their early 20s to have when they're still really trying to find themselves too, after being in the spotlight for so much of their lives. The Bangers album, though, you guys, it was full of bangers. Sorry for the bad pun. But seriously, this Miley album is so good. I genuinely loved it so much, and Miley is actually now celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the album. The project was definitely risky, but it paid off, being nominated for a Grammy, and the era truly changed pop culture. But what can you expect from someone coming out of a franchise that made billions of dollars? I think throughout her music releases, we really see Miley trying to find her own sound after leaving Disney, and it's really interesting to see her growth and exploration through that all. Like, she's done a country pop record with Younger Now, and then she had a more rock sound with Plastic Hearts, which I thought was one of her strongest post-Disney records. And then we have her most recent project, Endless Summer Vacation. So now I really think that Miley has started to find and master her sound. The longevity of her career is just amazing to have seen, and she's such a classic Disney star who's absolutely killing it today.
You're listening to Fan Fave with Katrina.
Fan Fave with Katrina.
Now, our next Disney star made her debut on the network shortly after Miley in 2006, Selena Gomez. I'm going to start with a disclaimer and say that Selena is my favorite. I am such a huge fan of her. She started off acting, and in 2007, when she got her own TV show, she sang the theme song for it. Now, unlike Miley, her show didn't actually have musical performances, so her singing career had to flourish alongside of it, kind of outside of it. Selena didn't sign to Hollywood Records until 2008, after releasing singles for other Disney shows and movies and other projects that were not her own. She continued to release music pretty much exclusively for Disney movies and shows until August of 2009, when she formed Selena Gomez and The Scene. You guys, Selena Gomez and The Scene was like the best era ever. For background, they're a band and Selena is like the lead singer. And what I actually found interesting that I didn't know as a kid is how Selena actually cited Paramore as an influence for the style of the band. And then she actually didn't want her name attached to the band. It was only going to be called The Scene at first, but because Selena already had such a huge fan base through Disney, and obviously Hollywood Records was tied to Disney and they wanted to kind of cross promote, they made sure that she included her name to kind of keep the fan base alongside her. Their debut album was called Kiss and Tell, and it had songs like Falling Down, and one of my favorites, Naturally, which is certified 4 times platinum. The album had success alongside Selena's fame on Disney, and her music was even promoted on the network. I mean, I remember like every commercial break seeing her music videos play, and then they were even premiering her music videos alongside movie premieres on the network, as well as like big show episodes on the network too. So they were definitely bringing a lot of the viewership towards Selena and her music career. Now, in 2010, Selena Gomez and The Scene released their second album, A Year Without Rain. The title track is still one of my all-time favorite Selena songs. Like, I love the music video, everything about it is just a moment. Their third and final album, When the Sun Goes Down, was released in 2011 and features probably 2 of Selena's most iconic songs to date, Who Says and Love You Like a Love Song. Love You Like a Love Song was actually certified 5 times platinum, and it was their highest performing track ever. In 2012, Selena did announce that her and The Scene would be going on a break because she wanted to focus on acting and she wanted her band to be able to go and pursue other music opportunities in that time. She did end that message saying that they would be back, but 11 years later, I don't know. I do feel like if she came online one day and even just hinted that Selena Gomez and The Scene was back, everyone would move. Literally everyone, because that was our childhood, and I think people associate the band with some of Selena's best music. Now, Selena did take that short break from acting, but in March of 2013, she was back with her debut solo album. She dropped the song Come and Get It, which became her first top 10 entry on the US Billboard Hot 100 at number 6. It was also one of my most streamed songs of 2013 for what it's worth. Just a great, catchy hit. Then we entered the Stars Dance era and got songs like Slow Down and Birthday, and then in 2014 she released a compilation album titled For You, which primarily featured her older songs, but then included the new song The Heart Wants What It Wants. This album was considered to be more of a contractual obligation as she needed to release a certain number of albums with Hollywood Records, and after she released this project, she left and then signed with Interscope Records, pretty much signaling the end of Selena's Disney era. Selena's second solo album, Revival, released in 2015 and featured songs like Good For You, Same Old Love, and Hands to Myself. This was a really solid and fairly cohesive album, a little dance, a little pop, but she also did some collabs during this era with artists like Zedd and also Charlie Puth for We Don't Talk Anymore, and the music video for that song was actually the most watched video on YouTube in 2016. It got over 3 billion views. In 2020, Selena released her third album, Rare, another really strong pop album for her, and then in 2021, she released her first Spanish language project, the EP Revelación, which became the biggest debut of an EP on Spotify with 8.57 million streams in 24 hours, and it received Grammy nominations. Now, as we await Selena's next album, she's also releasing new music on Friday, a new track titled Single Soon. One of the biggest things I want to highlight about Selena's career is that more than most of the former Disney stars, she has actually held a solid balance between acting and singing. I feel like a lot of people that come out of Disney, especially like Miley or Demi, who we're talking about today, they all either gravitated towards doing just singing or just acting. But Selena is one of the few that actually is doing a little bit of both. I mean, she's consistently stayed in the music industry, releasing music and touring over the years post-Disney, and then the acting that she's been doing, they've been pretty notable projects as well on top of that. And then she also has a beauty line, so she's just really in it all. The last Disney X act that I want to talk about today is Demi Lovato. Demi gained her first debut single through her movie on Disney Channel, and that single was titled This Is Me, which also featured Joe Jonas of the Jonas Brothers and served as her first top 10 entry on the Billboard Hot 100 chart at number 9. Demi signed with Hollywood Records in 2008 and toured with the Jonas Brothers on their Burning Up tour. I just want to stop and talk about it a little bit because one thing that I haven't really highlighted on this episode yet is how much they kind of overlapped. They're kind of all signing to Hollywood records around the same time, and then they're kind of cross promoting as well. So they're going on tours with each other, these Disney stars, and they're collaborating with each other on songs. They're on the same shows and projects. So they were building these pop stars, but then they were also having them work together as well to kind of be like this face of Disney together. Now, Demi released their debut album, Don't Forget, in September. And you guys, I think this is my favorite album debut from someone who came from Disney Channel. Like all of them, all the former Disney stars, this is the best debut album to come out of them all. Don't Forget is just that project. Demi definitely walked in the studio and was like, I want to make history, and that's what this is. The pop rock vibes of this album were so upbeat, and actually a fun fact is that 10 of the songs on this album were co-written by the Jonas Brothers. And I say that's interesting because some of the music also sounds like their sound from that time, like a little bit longer, lines, vines, and trying times type of pop rock. They were also featured on the album with the song On the Line. But Don't Forget is just such a nostalgic album for me. Like, I had the physical copy for this one as well. It's another one I used to listen to every day on the way to school. Like, La La Land will always be just a classic to me. Demi's second album, Here We Go Again, was even more successful than their debut, debuting at number 1 on the Billboard 200. Then, in November of 2010, Demi decided to leave her show with Disney Channel and announced she would be taking a break from acting. Her third studio album, Unbroken, was released in 2011, and it had a lot less of a pop sound and more mature lyrics. You may remember the beautiful ballad Skyscraper, which was the lead single from this album and definitely noted a shift in tone for Demi's music. Demi's fourth and self-titled album, Demi, was released in 2013, and I think this is my second favorite project by her. Maybe it's the nostalgia, but it's just really fun pop. It had songs like Heart Attack, Really Don't Care with Cher Lloyd, and Neon Lights. She continued to do tours, and then in 2015, she co-founded her own label, Safe House Records, alongside Nick Jonas and her manager at the time, Phil McIntyre, in collaboration with Island Records. And then she released her album Confident through this deal. Confident is definitely more R&B with pop influence in it as well. It featured the hit single Cool for the Summer and was nominated for Best Pop Vocal Album at the Grammys. This was also the era where I saw Demi live on the iHeartRadio Jingle Ball tour, and that was in like December 2015, I think. I just remember being amazed by her vocals and just absolute incredible talent. Like, she was the headline of the show, and she absolutely killed it. Her single Sorry Not Sorry came in 2017, and that went 5 times platinum. I mean, we all know that one. A hit. Demi still has great pull 15 years after her first project on Disney Channel, and she's getting ready to release her new album Revamped in a few weeks, where she's reimagining her older songs in the rock genre. And like I said, Don't Forget, as well as her other rock-leaning songs, have been my favorite projects of hers so far. So I'm super excited to hear Revamped. I really want to hear how she's going to reimagine these older songs that a lot of us grew up knowing and loving. Now, those are the 3 stars that came out of that peak era of Disney, and I'm sure some of you may be wondering, well, what about now? Is Disney still crafting pop stars? I would say maybe, but not in the way that they used to. Many of the pop stars that come from Disney these days more so seem to just get a start on Disney, but they aren't made by Disney the way these stars used to be. I feel like back in the day, Disney was crafting them and they had like this full marketing plan of like how they were going to release their music and how they were going to cross promote on different shows with the different pop stars on their brand. But now everybody is kind of separate. They're not even all necessarily on the Hollywood Records label even. For some, their major successes are even coming years after they left the network. Also, Radio Disney was a major way of promoting music back then, and Radio Disney is dead now. Unfortunately, I really miss Radio Disney, and that was just like another big way they got their promo. So that's out the window. Social media is now a lot prominent now, so a lot of kids are finding their artists through streaming and through TikTok. So things definitely have to be approached a lot differently by Disney. Some of the rising stars that have come out of Disney now include Dove Cameron, Sophia Carson, and Sabrina Carpenter. Coco Jones is another great rising star. It's actually been 11 years since she starred in her Disney movie, and now her EP, What I Didn't Tell You, is a hit. I love her song I See You, so she's just now starting to really pick up traction, and she's killing it. I do have to say, probably biggest star right now, who is at least at the fame level as some of these older pop girls that I talked about a lot today, is Olivia Rodrigo. She was in 2 Disney shows and she ended up leaving the second one due to her blossoming pop career. While she was featured on projects with the show that were released through Hollywood Records, she's actually signed to Interscope Records, and she did that in 2020 while her shows were still on Disney. Olivia is an absolute star that has broken countless records. She's topping the charts, and she's even been compared to Taylor Swift. She has already won 3 Grammys, she's only 20 years old, and she has only 1 album out. And then her sophomore album, Guts, is coming out in a few weeks, which I absolutely cannot wait to hear. So when you're looking at stars coming out of Disney, I definitely would say that Olivia is this great big rising pop star. But the only thing is that she's not currently on Disney anymore when she's starting to blow up. So I guess things are definitely really different for Disney now, but it's always really nice to kind of be nostalgic and like look back into like the way things were, you know? Maybe you should sit back today and go rewatch the Send It On music video like I did and just remember that perfect peak era of when we were young. That's all for today, though. I hope you all enjoyed the dive into these careers of 3 prominent pop stars from the Disney Channel era, and I hope you all learned something new or feel inclined to stream a classic album from one of the lovely ex-acts of Disney. What are your thoughts on their music careers? What's your favorite album by them, favorite song? Let me know because I want to hear from you. As a reminder, this podcast is a hub for all things pop culture. Keep listening to Fan Fave for recaps and breakdowns of the latest in entertainment news, trending topics, and more with commentary from fans. As Fan Fave is a bi-weekly podcast, you can expect brand new episodes every other Tuesday where I'll dive into a different aspect of pop culture. You can also stay in touch and join the Fan Fave community on social media where I'll be posting additional video content and vlogs from my many adventures and events that I attend in the entertainment world. That's at Fan Fave Media everywhere. So connect with me because I want to hear from you, my fellow fans of pop culture. Thanks for listening and see you soon.